Please welcome back Mr. Josh Slicer. As I understood it, you had 11 days of shooting left when River died. But in finishing it now in the 2012 version, did you need to make any changes? The question is, how different is this version from how you envisaged it?
I don't remember 93 version. This is not a joke. This is my will. Because if you try to finish a film, it has no sense thinking of what you miss, but you have to use what you have. So when I was able to see the material many years later, then shot, I knew that was what I could use. Therefore, to answer your question, yes, I had to rewrite the story because obviously there was things missing. That's one thing. There was also a kind of disbalance between what you shoot and you haven't shot. There was, apart from the narration, which I did to make the film, let's say, understandable, there are, let's call it script changes. There are even things which I did not use, which I had, because it did not fit anymore with the original script.
What attracted you to this project from the beginning?
I think I would not have made it if the story was not happening where the nuclear tests were made in the 50s and 60s, or even maybe in late 40s in the United States, in the states of Utah, Arizona, Nevada, and so on, and where hundreds of thousands of Indians died, not so many at the moment of the tests, but still today, or let's say when I was there, 93, people still had problems with leukemia and cancer, which was many years after the tests. So for me it was, let's say, a theme which was important, let's say, is a fact of what happened in Japan a few years ago, what happens maybe tomorrow somewhere else, what happened in the States, and wherever it might happen, is a fact that we are never safe enough and protective enough of the population near those places. I guess that's one thing, and the other thing is what I was originally in my very first feature, which is 50 years ago or something like that, interested in, I would say, the Indian people. So I guess that, apart from, I could say, the love story here, or the triangle, the classic, in a way, classic triangle, if you want to, I guess that there was no setting in Indian territory and no tests had been made, I'm not sure that I would have done the film. Now, if you ask me about love or about obsession, I think it's quite different than in Spolos, which was yesterday, but I think there is always in my films, in some way or another, I try to touch what I call gray zones, or to keep some mystery. If someone can tell me who Boy is really, I'd be glad to know, because I don't. I try to keep some mystery around this young man. He's a little bit mad, if you want to. He's very sweet in other moments. He is lonesome, so when you are alone for a long time, then your social, let's say, context change, and obviously part of his madness has to do with the fact that he built this kind of, let's call it, his own cathedral under the ground, where the spirits of the Indians drive him to go a certain way. And obviously, when he says, I want to make a place safe for afterwards and have kids, then I would say it's a love story, but it also has something to do of his need, be it correct or not, or good or well, that he wants to create nuclear-free children, if I can put it this way, so who are not potential victims. Obviously, the film, if I just go on for a second, is rather, let's say, tough on what I call our modern society. This is Los Angeles, but it could be maybe here or somewhere else, where obviously we are become very materialistic in some ways. We have lost a lot of spiritual values. We care a lot about money and comforts, and be it swimming pools in Los Angeles or big cars, and maybe something else elsewhere. It's making fun of the fact that you don't get very far with that only.
When you chose River for the role, I mean, he had a lot of, his resume was quite big at the time, so it's...
Well, I would say at the time he was probably, the biggest young star in America, like before you had James Dean, or he was the most popular young actor. He was more popular then, much more popular than Johnny Depp, for example. The choice, he was my first choice, partly because he was known as a very charismatic, gentle, sweet young man. Every girl fell in love with River, more or less. And the character of Boy is kind of, in a way, a little bit the reverse of that image which she had. So it was trying to combine a kind of a semi-lonesome, mad young man together with, I call the sweet, long-haired, blue-eyed boy, which he was known for. I can, just for this, the people, I got quite a lot of email from, I call them ex-lovers of River in 2012, when it was known on YouTube or wherever that I was making, and who pretended still, 20 years later, they were madly in love still with him.
Could you talk a little bit about what happened to the movie in all these years between?
I try to be short because it's a very complex and complicated story, but in fact, after River's death, I would say simply, be it producers or insurers or financiers, everybody decided to stop the film. There was no way to go on, even if some budgets were made with special effects and so on, but it was stopped. Then, for 5 years, the insurance company, who had paid out some damages, quite a lot, attacked the River Phoenix estate, which is the family, and wanted the money back because it was known that he had used drugs, and before signing a medical thing, which you have to do in a film, that you say you have never used drugs. So everybody has to sign that. Obviously, if things go well, there's no problem, but if you, like in this case, die, then the insurance wanted the money back for having lied to on his medical declaration. That took 5 years of lawsuits, first with the family, then with the state of Florida, who defended the family, and the insurance lost the case. on many arguments. One is quite amusing, is the fact that they said that all actors in Hollywood use drugs, so therefore the insurance should never have signed a contract with any actor in Hollywood, be it, from my part, from Sean Connery onwards to anyone today who is Brad Pitt or whoever you want to name. That was one of the arguments which the lawyers won. And the other argument is the fact that the insurance probably had forgotten that you cannot claim money on a dead person who dies. Let's say, so you can attack people, but you cannot attack someone who died. The film was blocked until '98. In '99, I say simply, I saved the film from destruction because the insurance wanted to destroy the material, and I didn't think it was adequate to get. I thought it was, let's put it this way, it was useful and better to preserve the material which had been shot, and all the creative work of actors and crew should be preserved. Then nothing happened for a long time because I was doing other films, and as I guess I said in the introduction of the film, when I was condemned by doctors to die within 6 months in 2008, I decided to try to finish the film. I didn't die, as you can notice. I made a mistake.
I have a question about the family after the movie was re-released or not re-released, but released in 2012. I read that they were invited to the screening, but they declined to come. And I was wondering if you can comment on their reaction after it was released in 2012.
I'm not sure I got your question. Can you repeat it?
The family.
Yeah.
She read that the family had received an invitation to see the film, but they declined.
Yes, that's correct. Well, I had a correspondence with the mother of River, and she wished us, the film, let's say, me and the people who were involved in finishing the film, the best, but they did not want to mourn forever for them. The mourning was over. They created a fund, which is I call River Phoenix Fund. So it's a kind of a charity fund. So money would came from former films or whatever would go in that fund, but they did not want to be victims of the media. Because obviously everything is blown up and exaggerated when anything happens. You know, you divorce, you marry, you fall in love, everything is in the paper today, so, or the television. And they did not care for all the nonsense. I must say that the brother, Joaquin Phoenix, was a successful actor, his younger brother. He's, to my knowledge, the only one who disliked the idea that I finished the film. The other family members, there were many children and other family, had no problem.
I'm really curious to know more about how you work and how you think about your scenes in an artistic way.
Well, let's put it this way. There were many films before which shape you as you go along in your ideas of how to structure a story, how to develop characters. Obviously, this was, in this case, the same. The only thing I maybe slightly regret afterwards, when I see a very good actor like Jonathan Pryce, I say, well, maybe I wrote him a little too one-sided, you know, like being the swimming pool cigar, you know, with a nice lighter and all the cleaning his pants the whole time and not liking to be in the desert, because that is also a I guess I thought of Michael Douglas a lot and transposed, because for me he's the people. He thinks, he says to the I'm like everybody else, and he's smart, but basically he only likes what pays well.
Can you talk a little bit about your process with the actors? I felt they were very three-dimensional, very textured.
Let's say, first of all, is to build confidence. That's number one, I must say, and I did have the time, for example, with River, to get to know him and him to know me, because obviously it's a reverse situation. So you have to trust your actor, and the actor has to trust his director. Because sometimes you ask people to go beyond what is easy or normal, or you have to go through a door which you don't want to cross and go to the other side. So you have really to build up that kind of relationship, but actors are willing maybe to do a little more than they might be in other films, or maybe not have done yet. Now, with River, it's easy to know that he's instinctive, he's charismatic, and he's dyslexic, so it's difficult to learn lines, because when you reverse every line, he is not someone who can play Shakespeare, if I can put it this way, very complicated. But he's someone who feels the character. And so the only thing, you have to trigger that character boy in him, then he does the rest. Regarding Jonathan Pryce, very nice actor to work with. I mean, extremely easy, and there's no double for Jonathan Pryce. Whenever he falls in, he did everything himself, except we had with the dog once, when he's attacked by the dog, had to use a double for a few seconds. But again, there I would say, a trained theater actor, I don't have to do much except I say, try to give my passion of a story to the actors. When you're young, you try to say you have to do this and go from left to right and look like this and do that. I really don't have to do anything anymore except to give my feeling about a story to the actors, and they pick it up. And Judy Davis was tougher. She's a very good actress, but she's a very tough lady to work with, so that was not easy. Not easy for me, but not easy for River either, because she is, if I can use the word, either a witch or bitch, or you can choose what you want, but she's a very good actress, but not easy. And not only with me, she was not even easy with David Lean and other directors. So I knew that. I thought I could handle it. I was a little mistaken regarding her. But there's an actor I work with, which is Klaus Kinski, which is now dead, but he's known as very, very crazy and difficult. And I managed that, so I thought I could manage anybody, but that's not always true. I don't know if I answer your question, because obviously there are some precise things about how you try to trigger something in an actor, or how they can trigger it in themselves. But basically, I would say that my very first actor taught me the greatest lesson of directing. It was a film I made in Brazil when I was still quite young, and I had an actor of 50-something, who was not a great actor, and he has a very moving scene in the film where he cries, and he has to call his cattle. He's a cowboy, and people ask him, "How did you play this? You've never been so good." He got many, many awards for Best Actor, and they asked, "What did George tell you? How did he direct you? What did he tell you?" And he said, "Nothing," which is nearly true. And how were you so good? And he gave me the answer to directing. He said, George was so passionate about the story he was telling that I could not play badly.
You said before about Indians. What is that? The fascination? Is it mystery or the basic lives, or what is it, your fascination?
Yes.
The question being your fascination with Indians.
Well, they're the kind of alter ego, if I can put it this way. As I am, let's say, middle-class European, and when you meet people who are different and have different culture and traditions and habits and ways of life, you learn a lot about yourself at the same time. I remember reading Triste Tropique, which is a famous book by Lévi-Strauss, a French anthropologist, when I was, I think, 17, 18, and he described his knowledge about Indians, what he had learned in Brazil about Indians, and I was very attracted because I understood through him more or less maybe who I was or might be. So in that sense, I guess it's not only American Indians, but it is people who are different from your own tribe, which are fascinating. As the French poet Jean Cocteau said, it's only interesting to learn about people who are different from yourself. Everything which is similar is rather boring. At the end, the head of the little group of Indians, he says, someone says, what do we do about these two? Well, if we are in the West, there would be police and a judge and the lawyers and the whole shit behind. And the Indian chief says, let them go, let them get out of our territory. There's no punishment in a sense as we have. And this is a choice I made, let's say script-wise, after talking to many Indians, that I noticed, or I learned from them, that they have another way of looking at what's right and wrong and how you should punish if something does something wrong or not.
Hi. Thank you for your films and thank you for
Thank you.
being here. How was it finishing this one?
Hard work. As I told you, I was the idea of finishing came when I was told, well, you don't have much time, and I said I'd like to preserve as best as I can what there is. They took still another, I think, nearly 4 years before I could, because I was doing other things and I was ill and I had to revalidate and so on. But from the moment I started the editing, it went well, because for me, as long as I work, I don't feel ill. And if I don't do anything, well, then I could fall down quite easily, probably. But as long as I'm a kind of a, let's call it creative workaholic. And that is, so it was not difficult really to put it together. I did have to get used to the material again, because I had not seen it for many, many years, and I wondered, is it worthwhile finishing it? Is it old-fashioned, or is it universal enough to hold even today, that the story still has value today, not only, let's say, 20 years ago? And so I had to ask, and then obviously I had to ask myself if I would do documentary in between, or have Chief of the Indians tell the story, or whatever, all the possible. But I decided, as I felt it, that I wanted to finish the film. Then I thought I then have to find the simplest way to do it, is just to save myself. That's why I narrate the film.
I want to say thank you so much for bringing the film here, and also saying that on the occasion of showing Dark Blood, we also showed 2 of your other films. One we showed last night was Sporlos, which most people, I hope, will know. And the last film we show is Uts, which you chose yourself, and I was wondering if you were final words.
Uts, I'm not going to say, you know, you have favorite films, but it's certainly one of my 2 favorite films. Armin Müller-Stahl, the German actor, won Best Actor Award at the Berlin Film Festival when it was shown. I got a lot of, let's call it, arts prizes for Best Art Film and whatever. But I think Uts is not only well acted by, I would say, 3 of the 4 main actors. Paul Scofield, well-known Shakespeare actor, maybe the best Shakespeare actor, you know, of the 20th century. He died, unfortunately. Brenda Fricker, who was in My Left Foot, who plays the housewife, and Armin Müller-Stahl, who plays the lead. And they're all 3, I would say, exceptionally good. I'm not going to do too much publicity, but I mean, now I talk as a viewer. I say, wow, about. And what I think is interesting is in Uts, it's about collecting porcelain, which is a tough subject for feature film. Boring subject, you know, man who collects little, like you collect maybe soldiers or cars when you're a child. To make a whole film about collecting and what drives a person who collects to the absolute, to obsessive, like collecting stamps. If you don't have the last stamp of that road, then you're not happy. The same if you don't have, in this case, the one piece of porcelain which you miss in your collection. But the nice thing about Uts, and I said that is interesting, is that it takes place partly in, I call it the pre-East European democracy, let's say before communism came in, before fascism came in, or before new democracy. And it's about collecting art. What does it mean to collect art? In what system you are? If you are under communism, or if you are in a capitalistic society, or in a fascist society. And it's quite interesting that you can follow that in Uts to a certain extent. I don't want to make it too complicated. I'll give you one little clue about my own crew. I had a Czech crew from Czechoslovakia at the time, and a German crew. I asked my German crew, lighters, assistant cameraman, what does collecting art mean for you? That's to make money, to make more money. And I asked the Czech crew, who just came from being free from communism, what is collecting art? They said freedom. Total difference of concept about collecting art. That's about Uts.
Thank you so much for bringing all 3 films here and for coming to Copenhagen. We're very proud to have you here.
Thank you. Just say thank you for being here and staying here also through all the talk I did, which is superfluous. Thank you.